The Life of Tom Bodett. Tom was born in Tupelo, Mississippi to French immigrants Francois and Marie, who came to America in hiding from the law. Now the Bodetts struggled from day to day, Francois working in apartment building maintenance, and Marie in a textile mill, in which most days had to take young Tom with her, and he would sit there and separate all the different colored fabrics. It wasn't long until Tom started getting into trouble with petty theft from the local bakery, trying to steal a loaf of French bread for the family. Food was scarce, and Tom's run-ins with the law were making things even more difficult, and the no-supper punishment would be even more heartbreaking when there was none in the first place. Tom also had trouble in school, consistently being harassed by his classmates about filthy clothes and worn-out shoes. One afternoon following the final bell, Tom's classmates locked him in the gym supply closet and left him there overnight. He spent 16 long hours terrified in the never-ending darkness before being found in a puddle of urine by the morning janitor. This begun a new and intense fear of dark for Tom, and could only find comfort with the lights on at night. Tom's anger with his surroundings grew to the point of finally snapping back at the bullies, beating two of them down and running off with their shoes. Tom was in his room when the police arrived with the school superintendent and took him down to the station while attempting to contact his parents. His mom showed up about an hour later, paid the fine, returned the shoes, and brought Tom home. Later that evening, Francois got home and learned of the day's events, sending him into a rage. He grabbed Tom and threw him into his room, smashed the small desktop lamp and slammed the door shut. Tom froze in place in fear with his mind racing, and quickly fumbled his way through the nightstand to find the candle and lighter just in case the power went out. He sat at the foot of the bed with the light flickering from the candle, but the fire inside of Tom was raging. Why me? Doing what he thought was just and getting him nowhere, and this path would have to change. When Tom turned 18, he left home vowing to never return, but his struggles followed him wherever he went. His escape quickly turned to drugs and alcohol, living in hostels, cheap motels, and even the streets where he naturally met more enablers of these addictions. Tom eventually landed a janitorial job in a nursing home, where a connection of his would supply him every once in a while with meds. He kept mostly to himself and strayed away from attention as he went from room to room emptying the trash. One evening in one of the rooms, a resident asked Tom if he could fetch her reading glasses from the dresser. Tom looked and looked but couldn't find them. The old woman, set with disappointment, said thank you anyways while holding her book. Tom looked to see her holding a copy of The Count of Monte Cristo, a favorite of his as he associated with a young Edmond Dantes early on. His shift was already over, so he offered to read some to her. She smiled, accepted, and Tom began to read. He had never read aloud before, but it felt natural enough, and a small group of residents began to gather around. Unknowingly to Tom, the home supervisor had wandered over just as dinner was getting ready to be served. Tom smiled to the grateful woman and told her he would finish it with her tomorrow, and stood up to see the supervisor had been standing behind him. Tom, now sitting in the office, thought back to his times in school waiting in the principal's office with sweaty palms waiting to receive his punishment. But wait! The supervisor told Tom that his soothing voice while reading had calmed and corralled several of the residents, known to be a bit of a handful. He offered Tom a much better position of simply reading and talking with the home's residents. How strange, right? Just talking and reading, he said. Of course, said the supervisor. You have a real talent here, you know. Well, this was certainly news to Tom, and he happily accepted. Much of Tom's life had been in darkness, a constant feeling of strain and angst. But this new motivation, this sense of purpose invigorated him, breathing a sense of content and happiness that may have been the first in his life, eventually kicking his habits and cleaning up his act along with getting his own small studio apartment. Several months had passed now, with the holidays approaching, and Tom received a knock on the door. The man introduced himself as an estate lawyer for the Bodett family. Tom's contempt for his parents melted away as he learned they had passed over a year ago in a traffic accident, and was now left with his thoughts and a cardboard box full of books, a couple pieces of jewelry, and a mostly molten candle. His heart was pounding now. I should have stayed. The times he had missed are now lost forever, and only the haunting memories remain. He took off into the night to quell his pain the only way he knew how. His buddy at the nursing home had what he needed. As the exchange of money and pills went down, the supervisor walked around the corner directly into them, sending the pills all over the floor. What the hell is this? Exclaimed the supervisor, knowing full well what had just occurred, and Tom bolted for home just as fast as he could. He wasn't hardly in the door when two police officers cornered him and brought him down to the jail. A fresh ink pad for fingerprints and mug shots awaited him when they arrived. The supervisor standing in the detective's office with a look of disgust and sadness in his face. Tom just sat in his cell waiting for whatever steps would follow, knowing his past and priors would not bode well, and with no family to rescue him. Tom woke up on his small bench and sat up to find a gentleman standing just outside the bars wearing a neat pressed suit. "Are you my lawyer?" asked Tom. And with a smile and a small shrug, he said, "No, Tom, my name is Jordan Kirschmeyer, and I want to talk to you for a bit." Tom nodded okay with a semi-confused expression, and Jordan sat down. He explained that Tom had been reading to his mother at the nursing home, and when he visited with her, she would go on and on and on about this amazing voice you have, how soothing and relaxing it was to listen to, and now he had found him to hear it for himself. Tom noted quickly, "Well, here I am, but why the need to see me? Especially now." Jordan smiled and said, "My company and I want to use your voice for our commercials." "It's absolutely perfect," Tom smirked back, saying, "You plan on bringing some recording equipment to my cell?" "No," smiling back said Jordan. "I've already spoken with the district attorney and he is going to set you up with a work release, if you so choose, of course." Tom lowered his head and said, "Not sure if I have much of a choice. It's that or this cold cell." Tom arrived on his first day feeling very out of place at the headquarters of Motel 6, meeting Mr. Kirschmeyer just inside the front doors. "Let me show you to the office." Now sitting in a small room with padded foam walls, a large microphone hanging from the ceiling, and only a medium-sized window facing the rows of cubicles to keep from feeling totally isolated, even though that's all he felt. Tom had stack upon stack of lines and paragraphs to record day in and day out, and just sat on his stool reading them over and over again. When the other office workers left for the day, he toiled on, able to prop the door open when it was quiet and just a cleaning crew going about their work. And when they were done and headed up the exit, lights out. Only a small, dim light in the studio kept Tom still alive, fear of dark at bay. Several weeks passed now, and one of the evenings after work, Tom stopped by the grocery store to pick up a few items. He stood in line with several people waiting as the radio on the counter started to play a Motel 6 commercial. A light country violin and bass accompanied Tom's narration, and he grinned a bit as this was the first time hearing himself. "Oh my God, I just love that voice," said the woman in front of him, and the cashier smiled and nodded. "It comes on a couple of times a day in here, and I love it too." "My voice?" said Tom in a somewhat bewildered state, and the entire grocery line burst with excitement. "You're Tom Bodett," said the cashier. "You've got a real talent." Tom left the store still smiling a bit at what had just occurred, and arrived home to put his groceries away. His pantry was pretty stuffed and started to move things around to make more room when he came upon the box the lawyer had brought him. He stood there for a moment, then opened it, picking up the first book that laid on top, The Count of Monte Cristo. He opened it just slightly, and a small note fell out, landing at his feet. He bent over to pick it up, recognizing the handwriting immediately. His mom's. "Tom, I hope one day this note finds you, and finds you doing well. You didn't have a great childhood, and your father and I weren't always there for you. I don't blame you for any of the wrongdoings, past and present. You're a wonderful and gifted young man. I hope that you know that no matter what, we always love you. Mom." Tom was now sitting on the floor next to the box and his book, tears flowing down his face and a warm rushing sensation throughout his body. He felt happy. He's using his gift. It is making others smile and giving him purpose. Tom breathed with deep satisfaction. The first time in a long time again. Into work the next day, Tom felt lighter on his feet, as if years of anguish were no longer on his shoulders. And that evening, as he read his commercials and the cleaning crew finished their work, the head janitor walking to the exit turned back and said, "Don't worry, Tom. We'll leave the light on for you."